Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. You wake up violently thrashing in bed. Spouse thinks you are just having a bad nightmare, but inside, you are drowning in a memory that refuses to die. The water is still rising. This full-body feeling is a flashback. It is a main sign of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. In PTSD, the part of your brain that separates the past from the present stops working properly. Psychologists call this part the hippocampus. Your brain keeps its threat alarm turned on to protect you. People might tell you to just get over it, but for the 5.6% of trauma survivors with this condition, their brain structure is actually changed. They need trauma-focused therapy, like EMDR, to finally put the nightmare in the past. You're not stuck in the past by choice. You are someone whose nervous system is trying very hard to keep you alive. Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, ADHD, you have 3 weeks to write a one-page report. Yet you spend 12 paralyzed hours staring at a blinking computer cursor. A screaming voice inside begs your hand to just move the mouse. The room is silent, but your mind is a chaotic storm of 6 different songs and random thoughts. Then a topic catches your interest. You aggressively read 1,000 pages about old blacksmithing without blinking or eating. The steering wheel is completely broken. This intense focus is called hyperfocus. It is a key part of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. Your brain doesn't produce enough motivation chemicals, especially dopamine, to reward boring tasks. Your brain evolved to care about highly exciting, immediate threats, not everyday paperwork. Critics claim ADHD is a fake excuse for poor discipline because you can focus on video games. They ignore that 366 million adults lack the chemical ability to choose their focus. Stimulant medications can successfully bridge this gap. You're not careless or lazy. You are operating a high-performance engine that demands a completely different, intense fuel to finally start. Obsessive-Compulsive Disorder, OCD. A sickening image of violently pushing a stranger into traffic flashes in your mind. It sends a surge of nausea straight to your stomach. You immediately tap your left leg 4 times. You are desperate to neutralize the terrible thought and prove you are not a murderer. The relief lasts exactly 12 seconds. Then, the agonizing doubt creeps back, demanding you tap again. You are a mental hostage. These intrusive thoughts feel completely opposite to who you really are. Psychologists call them ego-dystonic obsessions. They define obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD. This is caused by a glitch in the brain's alarm system. It flags a deadly problem but fails to send the all-clear signal. People joke they are so OCD because they like a neat closet. This erases the painful reality of 80 million people. They rely on exposure and response prevention therapy, ERP, to tolerate this endless doubt. You're not a hidden psychopath. The fact that your intrusive thoughts disgust you is the ultimate proof they aren't who you are. Panic disorder and agoraphobia. You're eating popcorn during a quiet comedy movie. Suddenly, an invisible, crushing weight collapses your chest. It tells you that you are dying right now. Your fingertips go numb, your vision goes dark. You run out of the theater, gasping for air that refuses to enter your lungs. Days later, you cancel all your plans and refuse to leave your house. You are terrified of the invisible attacker hiding inside your own chest. You fear your own heartbeat. This fear of leaving home is called agoraphobia. It often stems from panic disorder. In this condition, a misfiring amygdala dumps massive amounts of adrenaline into your blood. It is desperately trying to save you from a physical predator that does not exist. Friends tell you to just take deep breaths. They don't understand that 200 million people are surviving the physical equivalent of a bear attack. A therapy called interoceptive exposure can gradually help you get used to these feelings and untangle the fear. You're not dramatic or weak. Your body is executing its ultimate survival response at full volume. Schizophrenia. A hot feeling crawls up your back. A deep voice right behind your ear tells you exactly what to do. You spin around, but your apartment is empty. This is an auditory hallucination, hearing things that are not actually there. But to you, it feels just as real as a physical intruder. Your face goes blank. Moving your arm feels like dragging it through heavy, wet sand. The real world fades away. You cannot trust your own ears. Schizophrenia changes how your brain uses a chemical called dopamine. This creates symptoms like hearing voices that feel completely real. Your brain's system for recognizing patterns misfires and invents people or sounds out of nowhere. Many people wrongly think this means having a violent split personality. But for the 23 million people globally living with this shattered reality, it is mostly confusing and scary. Antipsychotic medications can help quiet the noise and give them their lives back. You're not a dangerous monster. You are enduring the exhausting terror of a reality you cannot rely on. Bipolar disorder. You haven't slept in 3 days, but your blood feels like rocket fuel. You excitedly draw plans for a floating city you want to build tomorrow. You speak faster than your mouth can move. You terrify your friends, but you feel invincible. Then, without warning, the floor drops out. You fall into a heavy darkness where even lifting your head feels impossible. The gravity always comes back. This high-energy phase followed by a crash is the core of bipolar disorder. The systems in your brain that control mood flood you with chemicals to push you forward. Then they crash hard, leaving you paralyzed for weeks. People might dismiss this as everyday mood swings, but this extreme emotional cycling disrupts the lives of 40 million people. They often need mood stabilizers, like lithium, to survive the emotional whiplash. You're not erratic and unstable. You are forced to survive invisible psychological earthquakes that constantly destroy and rebuild the ground beneath you. Borderline personality disorder, BPD. Have you ever felt a 3-minute delay in a text reply slice through your chest like a knife? It instantly convinces you that you are worthless. You frantically text your partner begging them not to leave. But the second they arrive to comfort you, you scream at them to get out. You change your personality to match whoever is in the room. This happens because the core of your identity feels terrifyingly empty. Love feels exactly like dying. In borderline personality disorder, BPD, your brain's fear center, called the amygdala, becomes overactive. It treats small relationship problems like a life-threatening danger. Your brain uses extreme childhood survival habits to deal with adult relationships. Society often calls people with BPD toxic manipulators, but the 14 million adults with BPD are actually acting out of pure, physical terror. A treatment called dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, can heal this by teaching them how to handle emotional pain. You're not a manipulative villain. You are someone surviving life with severe emotional burns, where every touch feels like fire. Major depressive disorder, MDD. Your bones feel hollow. Faking a smile for a photo drains all your physical energy. You don't want to cry. You just want to sink into the ground and stop the exhausting act of being alive. The color has bled out entirely. Major depressive disorder, MDD, creates an inability to feel pleasure. Psychologists call this anhedonia. Your brain stops responding properly to dopamine, the reward chemical. It is like your brain is trying to force you into hibernation, and it refuses to wake up. People tell you to just go outside and exercise. They ignore that over 280 million people are trapped in a literal chemical drought. This condition often requires therapy and antidepressants to fix. You're not lazy or ungrateful. Your brain is desperately struggling to create the feeling of meaning it once made automatically. Generalized anxiety disorder. Over 301 million people worldwide wake up every day with a constant heavy feeling of dread in their chest. Your jaw is locked tight. Just choosing a toothpaste triggers a stressful spiral of what-ifs. You practice a simple coffee order 7 times in your head. You brace your body for a social disaster that never happens. The alarm bell never stops ringing. Generalized anxiety disorder locks your brain's fear center, the amygdala, into a hyperactive loop. Your brain tries to keep you perfectly safe by constantly imagining future threats. But we live in a world that rarely requires physical combat. Society calls you an overthinker who needs to just relax. But this constant flood of stress hormones requires cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, to help your brain stop seeing danger everywhere. You're not a cowardly pessimist. You are enduring the painful marathon of a nervous system that is always braced for an impact. A social anxiety disorder. Most people think social anxiety is just being a quiet introvert who prefers a book over a party. It isn't. It is standing outside a brightly lit room, desperately wanting human connection. But your chest burns with the absolute certainty that walking inside will ruin your reputation forever. You finally speak, but you feel disconnected from your body. You watch your hands shake. You internally punish yourself for every slight stutter, viewing it as a massive social disaster. The spotlight feels like burning fire. Your brain's self-monitoring system becomes hyperactive, forcing this brutal self-criticism. Your brain treats potential social rejection as if you are being kicked out of your tribe and left to die. You are not just being antisocial. The 12% of the population with this condition are actually experiencing a severe threat response. Social exposure therapy and medications like SSRIs can successfully dismantle this fear. You're not cold or distant. You are someone who wants to connect so badly that the terrifying risk of failing paralyzes you. Eating disorders, you step backward from the bathroom mirror. But the reflection staring back at you is completely distorted. You see a bloated stranger that you feel forced to destroy. The painful ache of a starved stomach doesn't feel like pain. It feels like an intoxicating victory against a chaotic world. Whether you are strictly weighing a single almond or secretly forcing yourself to throw up, you are seeking absolute control. The mirror is a ruthless liar. Eating disorders alter your brain's internal tracking systems. They twist the brain's ancient ability to survive starvation into a dangerous coping mechanism for deep emotional pain. Society often dismisses these as superficial diets taken too far. But these lethal brain distortions trap 70 million people worldwide. They require specialized therapy like CBTE and medical monitoring to rebuild a safe relationship with reality. You're not vain or obsessed with beauty. You used immense, misdirected strength to survive emotional chaos. Reclaiming your life will demand every ounce of that same power. Dissociative Identity Disorder, DID. Have you ever found a fully finished painting in your apartment, signed in handwriting you don't recognize, but the painter was somehow you? There is no foggy memory. It is a stark, terrifying blackout where another protective identity took the wheel to get through the day. To your coworkers, your voice and posture change strangely, but inside, you are just a passenger waking up in the middle of a movie you never bought tickets for. You survived by shattering completely. Dissociative identity disorder is an extreme survival response. Psychologists call this psychological triage. Severe childhood trauma prevents the mind from forming one stable identity. The brain literally alters its blood flow and builds structural walls to contain pain that a child could not survive otherwise. People accuse DID of being a fake social media trend, but this heavily judged condition quietly protects up to 3% of the population. It requires decades of trauma therapy to open communication across these isolated mental walls. You're not faking an act for attention. Your developing mind built a miraculous, strong fortress to keep you alive when nobody else would. These aren't character flaws with medical names. They aren't excuses, phases, or choices. They are specific, documented ways a human mind can be shaped. They are shaped by genetics, by experience, and by trauma that happened before you had the words to explain it. Every condition in this video has a logical origin, and every person living with one has a valid reason.